Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's show. As you know, my name is Brian. I'm your host. We have a really fun, very entertaining guest on today. Someone I have known for, I think, close to 10 years now, 8, 9, 10 years. We have Christina Bowman on. So here's the best way to describe Christina. She's a devoted nomad, mindset enthusiast, connection connoisseur, and genuine experience seeker as a student of life. And I'm really excited. So I got to know Christina 9, 10 years ago through a client of mine. And we just connected on social media, connected through text, and we had a great conversation on the phone last week. I think for like an hour as I was driving, and we kind of set up for today's show. And I've been so excited for today to interview her. I was sick on Sunday. I didn't know if we were going to pull off the interviews today, but I've been able to rally and feel good now. So had my first cup of coffee in almost 2 or 3 days, about an hour ago. So I'm feeling a little energized. But anyway, all that aside, my amazing friend, Christina, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Well, thank you, sir. Happy to be here. I'm happy you're feeling better, and you're probably going to need that energy with the coffee with me.
Yeah, I noticed when we talked last week, I was all my energy was gone because we had such a great conversation. But I felt energized at the same time. But you are a spark plug, and that's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, it's funny because everybody out there. So I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago. I was thinking I've been reaching out to people saying, okay, we have a lot of people who will email saying, hey, I'd like to be on your show, and we do pick some of those people. But if I don't know them, it takes a lot more work for me to do the research to see if it's something that we should put on the show. So I was going through, I asked a lot of my clients and friends and former guests, hey, if you know of anybody, and then I was scrolling through Facebook and Christina's picture came up, her post. I'm like, dude, I need to pull Christina in here because I follow her on Facebook and I love to watch her travel pictures. And she said like that same day she was considering or thinking about reaching out to me. So it was just perfect timing and everything. So I'm glad we finally got to do this show today. So Christina, I've gotten to know obviously a lot more about you over the past few years, but can you please share with the guest a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your childhood, who or what inspired you growing up, just whatever you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like the dreaded about me section when you do like a dating profile or something. I always feel weird doing it.
I think your bio is the perfect description of you for any dating app.
I might have to use that from now on. Honestly, that was the best little cohesive writing I've ever done, I think. But yeah, no, I've honestly grown up, born and raised here in Michigan. I've lived here my entire life. I've been predominantly in like southern Michigan, although I did go to Grand Valley State University and got a bachelor's degree in communications from there, but promptly moved back home. I'm really, really close to my family. I think that's probably one of the most wholesome things about me. But
you're very close with your brother, aren't you?
Yeah, I have 2 brothers, and I'm really close to both of them.
Both of them, okay. I noticed you post a lot of that on Facebook. That's really cool.
Yeah, my family and I are exceptionally close. My younger brother and I go every single Sunday to my parents' house, and we play cards with them. If you see in some of my posts, I have a little like Ace of Spades tattoo on my right hand because we play spades every single weekend. So it's a little nod to my family. That's
awesome. I love that. So growing up, what was it like? You grew up in a small town? Or where?
Very. So I grew up in a village, not even a town or a city. The big village of Clayton. I grew up on 15 acres and just very country living. I actually went to a private Christian school for through third grade. I finally transferred to public school in fourth. So I don't want to say a sheltered life, but a very conservative life for the most part starting out. And public school was a huge transition for me, getting to come out of my shell a little bit, show my personality, really figure out if I had a personality somewhere in there.
Hey, trust me, you do.
So that was probably a bigger transition period as a child. And then, like I said, I have two brothers. My older one is 12 years older. My younger one is a lot closer in age. He's only 2 years younger than me. And my older one enlisted in the military, in the Air Force, when I was 6. So I literally was glued to that man's leg anytime he was home. So if we have to talk about like role models, he's probably, as a child, the person that I looked up to or wanted to be like the most growing up.
Oh, it's so funny, Christina. I've shared this a lot on the show. I would guess if I went back, and I'm not going to, but if I did go back to this is the 114th episode, and I think out of that 114 episode, maybe 90 of those, 85, 90 were me interviewing somebody versus me just, talking. And I would imagine 70% or more of the people I've interviewed are from small towns. Maybe more than
Really?
that. Yeah. I mean, I had a few from New York City and a few from bigger towns, LA, but most, I would say, it may be 80 to 85% are from small towns. One lady graduated, I think, with 5 people in her class. I'm from a small town. I think we had 75 in our graduating class. But it doesn't, and they're from all walks of life at all parts of the country, and they've all done different things in their lives, And I don't know if there's a connection. Maybe I connected to people from small towns more. I don't know. Or just that people who do really interesting things in life, a lot of those people do come from small communities.
Maybe it's that those of us that come from small towns and small communities always feel like there's something bigger and better out there. I think there's 2 different types of people, really. Those who are very comfortable in that life and want to stay there and don't really seek anything outside of it, and those that really want to see everything that is out there. But until you're exposed to it, you don't even know that it exists. So kind of one of those things, it's like a dopamine hit when you travel outside or venture outside of your little community. You're like, oh, well, if this is cool, what could the next thing be? And what could the next thing be?
I agree. And I also think there's a value to growing up in a small community where you tend to be close to your family because they tend to live closer to you, geographically. So you can visit more often. You get to know people, a lot more people in a small community than you do in a large city quite oftentimes, because you get to know everybody. Whereas in a city, you might just know your core group of people. You may be exposed sometimes to less viewpoints, which seems kind of counterintuitive. But when you're a small community, you get to meet almost everybody in the town. You get to know them. You get to see them at school, at church, at ball games, at the fairs, carnivals, wherever you go. And there's something that I think was always the standard that people thought, if you're from a big city, you're exposed to bigger ideas and all. That's not true. I've lived in bigger cities. I've lived in small towns. And I really think you learn a lot. You are exposed to a lot of things if you look for it in a small community. If you stay with your small group of people in your small community and you don't venture out, of course, you're going to be more, subjected to just one mindset. But there's a lot of different diversity in small communities. You just have to look for it. And
I agree. And I also think, sorry to interrupt you, but how you talked about how in bigger cities, you don't really feel like you were like exposed to as much. I think that there's just so much deeper connection in a closer knit community, but also even when I travel, every big city that I travel to feels so impersonal.
Oh, 100% agree. You ever go to New York City? I think it's cool as hell.
No, I have zero desire to, honestly. It is at the bottom of my list. My list is pretty long.
I really like it. I do. And I really like Chicago. I don't like Chicago as much anymore. I used to love going to Chicago every year or two. But I like the experience of those cities at times. But when you're there, you do feel isolated. You're around millions of people and you feel alone. Where you walk down the street of a small town, you see a small group of people, but you do not feel alone. You get the waves and the hellos. And so I think there's a lot of value to that.
I was just going to say that. Like when you're in a small town, even when I drive by, like people to go to my parents' house, just to give you an idea of how country it is, there's no paved road for like 2 miles.
Really?
Yeah. So like when you're driving on the road, even if it's just casually, you wave to the people that are driving by.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that. But like there are times when I've been out and surrounded by millions of people or thousands of people, and like you feel lonelier in that setting than you do by yourself.
I think it's important, though, for all of us who grew up in small towns to either move away for a while, then come home, or travel while you're there to see other parts of the world. And, so you don't become so homogenous, and come back. And that way you appreciate the value of your community much more. And you have this exposure of other worldviews and other, the things you've been doing. So let's get into that a little bit. So I want to ask you, as this iconoclastic person, that's really why I brought you on here. Because when I see your stuff on Facebook and when I talk to you, the thing that kind of comes up to me is that you just live your life the way you want to live your life. You just live it. I mean, you don't have, I know we all have insecurities, and we all try to, fit in at times, and we do things for other people, even though we don't want to, or we live a life somewhat to conform to some degree. You seem to do that less than most people. Was that something you always have been like, or is that something that happened later in life? Okay.
You can thank therapy for that one. No, I'm not joking. I was probably the biggest people pleaser growing up. I cared way too much about what people thought, and I still have to remind myself quite often that it's not necessarily that other people's opinions don't matter, but they're not going to matter in how the course of my life plays out. So if I wouldn't take advice from the person, why does their opinion really matter?
I like that.
Kind of thing.
So,
but yeah, definitely no, I was not like this until I would say, I don't know. I really feel like I hit my stride at like 30.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's probably right around the time I met you. No, I met you when you were in your 20s, or when I first got introduced to you.
Yeah. I think that I was starting to get there. Like there was little like creaks of sunlight coming out where I was trying to figure it out. But I think it all kind of clicked for me and started coming together once I hit 30. But the years prior to that, it was little glimpses of, oh, well, I kind of like this. And well, that feels good. And all right, well, maybe I want to pursue this. So there was a lot of exploration there in the late 20s. Because I mean, when I got out of high school, eventually I married my high school sweetheart and promptly got divorced. And then, so like I kind of got thrown out to the world in my mid 20s. And that was the first time I got to really experience anything alone.
I didn't even know you were ever married until just now.
Most people don't.
It never pops up anywhere. I guess that was when you were much younger, so I had no idea.
Yeah. No, yeah, I got married pretty young and got divorced promptly after, but we were together for 10 years almost, so I had never really experienced any part of adulthood alone until I was 24, 25 years old.
Well, a lot of people, that's not uncommon. People who go to college and they live with people, and then they don't really get to explore life on their own until their mid-20s or, somewhere in there. But, what I want to tell everybody, the reason I really wanted to bring Christina on here is one of the things I'm really impressed. There's three things that I'm really impressed with Christina. Number one, she is a gym rat. I mean, she's constantly working out in different forms, whether it's lifting weights or hiking. I mean, she's very in tune with taking care of herself physically, but also she's very in tune with taking care of herself mentally and emotionally. She's got an incredibly sharp brain and mind. She's very focused on constant personal development and growth, and she travels all the time to really cool places around the world, and sometimes alone, sometimes with others, which I'm sure she'll get into here. To get from that kind of person who was a people pleaser to this person who you are now, was there a moment, an epiphany or an inspiration that you started thinking, okay, I want to make some changes and I want to become more of who I am?
I don't know that it was that conscious, but yes, I would say like over the course of a few years, like I started discovering that there were things that I really enjoyed doing and things that I wanted to do. Like you brought up hiking. I had never done it before. And suddenly I think it was like 2016 or 2017. Well, actually, I guess there was a pretty good catalyst somewhere in there. In 2016, I lost one of my best friends to suicide. And now thinking back on that, that probably was one of the biggest catalyst for change. I booked a flight a few weeks later to go visit another friend that lived in Arizona just to escape. And so I think that travel at that point became kind of an escapism path. But I went to the Grand Canyon for the first time on that trip, and just that kind of set the tone where I was like, okay, well, when I'm feeling trapped or like I need to go somewhere, like I can actually go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I had never traveled alone. I didn't even have a passport until 2018.
Well, you've definitely been using that passport since 18, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I would definitely say that was probably a big catalyst for change, because I had lost a few friends at a pretty young age. I lost one to a car crash when he was, I couldn't have been more than 21 years old at the time. And he had just come back from deployment. And then a few years later, I lost this one. And death is a really common thing, I guess, in my life. And I don't know if consciously it put it in perspective, but I'm guessing that subconsciously it really did. That, all right, I need to get working on these things and get doing things. And I don't even know that I had a dream of traveling or even knew if I would enjoy it. But I just kind of started doing things that were outside of my comfort zone, because I was very much the person that stayed within those four walls of my comfort zone and never broke out, which is kind of crazy to say now, because I'm completely the opposite now.
Yeah. Well, so let's look at I don't care if we talk about the last 12 months or the last couple of years. Can you share what is a great learning you've had recently that others can benefit from?
Man, I feel my whole life is a series of learning experiences. I feel like there's just such a theme of highs and lows. And for me, I really had to pick up on the fact that there will always be highs and lows. And what I needed to focus on was how I brought myself out of those. And over the course of time, maybe something that people can pick up on is that I really learned that it was dependent on me. The lows only last as long as I allowed them to. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to wallow in my own self-pity and my own self-destruction, then I was going to stay there for a long time. If I was going to let it affect me in a negative way, that was my choice. So once I kind of gave the power back to myself and said, okay, well, this happened, and yeah, that freaking sucks, and that hurts, and it's terrible, but what do I want from it? What do I want to do? Or how do I want to get myself out of it? And you brought up fitness and being a gym rat. I've very much learned over the years that my mental health is very heavily dependent on physical activity. I have to stay active. I have to be doing things. That is a very cathartic release for me. But I think growing wise, it's just learning how to pull yourself out of bad situations, especially mentally. Learn what works for you. For me, it's staying active. It's staying physical. It's also not consuming things that are highly negative. I had to weed out a lot of social media, a lot of friends, a lot of influences in my life that were not benefiting me in any sort of way. And it's heartbreaking at that time. We kind of talked about this a little bit ago, but you have to grieve that loss. But in the end, it's so much better for you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, doctors. Chip Fitchner here, co-founder of Large Practice Sales and the host of Practice Partnership, Monetizing Your Dental Practice. Every month, we release new episodes that teach dentists how to enhance their practices' profitability and build generational wealth by partnering with an invisible dental support organization. The fact is, dental consolidation is accelerating. It's coming to your town if it's not there already. So tune in to Practice Partnership to stay on top of what's happening in our industry by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting us at largepracticesales.com.
Yeah, we both talked about this before we started recording, and we talked about it last week on the phone. And I've done the same thing with people in my life in the past year and a half to 2 years, and it still hurts. There are moments when the grieving process still goes on of things that I've left behind or have, excommunicated from my life, so to speak, whether it be people or behaviors. When you were doing that, when you were making that conscious choice to move past things that were toxic to you, what was that like emotionally for you?
Oh, terrible.
Fucking sucks.
Yeah, just like, I can't sugarcoat that. It's freaking awful. Oh God. Like, I remember feeling like the lowest that I've ever felt in my life. Like, I'll just give you an example of kind of a recent high and low. I did 75 hard after a breakup that I didn't even know I was having at that time. So back in like fall of 2022, I decided to do 75 hard.
Can you
If you've
real
never
quickly
done it
share with
before,
us what I know what it is, but maybe a lot of audience members don't know.
it's intense. So it's not a fitness program. I just want to put that out there first, because everybody thinks that it's a health and fitness and weight loss program. No, it's a mental focus and fortitude challenge. It's basically asking you, can you spend 75 days focused solely on you and building you better? And can you like put the focus on you for that long? So you have to do 2 45-minute workouts every day. One of them has to be outside. Doesn't matter if it's rain, shine, snow, 2,000 degrees inferno and 100% humidity here. You have to do one of those outside. You also have to drink a gallon of water per day, read 10 pages of a personal development book, take a progress photo every day. And I am missing, follow a diet. No cheat meals, no alcohol, no nothing. For 75 straight days. You miss one thing, you start over on day one.
So, okay. So
Yeah.
is it 7 days a week, twice a day, 45 minutes of workout?
For 75 days.
And you don't miss a day?
Don't miss a day.
What can
And there's
okay,
one thing about me. I am overly competitive, so I will not fail at something.
So, okay. So going out, let's say you did the 75 or the 45 minutes outside. Could it be a walk?
Yeah, that was predominantly what I did.
Sure,
I would
okay.
go for a walk on my lunch break. I'd take like 45 minutes to an hour, go walk the trails here in the town that I work at. And just that would be my 45 minutes outside. And then if I didn't do that, I tended to put my stationary bike outside and I would ride that. I did a lot of kayaking if it was summertime. But I love being outdoors. So like walking outdoors that one was good for me. I enjoyed that a lot.
Because I think when I reached out a few weeks ago to a lot of people asking, hey, if you have a friend or somebody you have a strong connection with that you want to have on the podcast, I think one of the people sent back the founder of 75 Hard. I have not reached out.
Andy Frisella?
That's the name.
Oh,
Yes.
get him.
If I'm not mistaken, was he a baseball player?
I want to say yes.
Okay.
No. Ed Milet was a baseball player.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about Andy.
Ed Milet was a baseball player, yeah.
And Ed and Andy are very close. Like, I know that they even have a business thing that they do together because I follow both of them intensely.
Okay. Well,
that
was the name that you sent out.
75 Hard.
Yeah, that was the name of the person. I just haven't pursued that yet. But okay, so that's everybody knows what 75 Hard is. I'll try to remember to include a link to it. So if anybody wants to explore it further, hopefully I'll remember to put at the bottom of the show notes. So anyway, So I'm sorry I interrupted you to have you explain 75 Hard. So
not at all. Interrupt me anytime you want. But yeah, so I did that, and I really don't think that there's a time in my adult life where I did not care about anything else going on. I was like, I have to complete these tasks. Like, I made this promise to myself. I have to keep this promise to myself because, like I said, I was like a recovering people pleaser. So if somebody said, hey, can you skip that? And can you skip your afternoon gym session and come do this with me? Old me would have said, yeah, absolutely. But I had this thing in my mind. I was like, nope, can't give up on this. Nope, can't give up on this. And so I completed it first time through, never cheated once. The physical transformation was pretty astounding. I had never been in that good a shape in my entire life. I'm like 5'3", but I'm a very stocky 5'3". Like, I'm heavily muscular.
you are muscular.
So I got down to, I think, 152 pounds, and that was the lowest that I had ever been as an adult. And you could see my abs, and I was like, I didn't even know those existed anymore. But I felt so good. And I think a big part of that was not drinking, because we live in such a society where like it's just casual drinking on a normal basis. And I wouldn't say that I was a super heavy drinker, but I was definitely your glass of wine a night at dinner, like relaxed kind of girl. And I never knew life without alcohol. So that was a bit different.
I can imagine.
But the mental focus that I had after that was just, I was on fire. Like everything I did mentally, I was like firing on all 8 cylinders. If I had 12, I was firing on all 12. And I had never felt better physically or mentally. And then as soon as it was over, I was like, okay, I'm going to have that donut, because donuts are my absolute weakness. So I went to a cidery, had donuts the next day, and I was like, oh, I don't feel that great. But it took a little while to try to figure out what was going to be a balance between life, normal life, because, I mean, that program is not sustainable for life. I know that people do it, but you really give up everything else to focus on you.
Okay.
So for me, it wasn't sustainable for a lifestyle, but it really did a great job of prioritizing my focus and knowing what I wanted and how I felt, and knowing that I could even feel that good. That was huge. But so fast forward to like, go ahead.
Was it like at that moment when you were doing that, because you had such physical clarity and emotional and mental clarity, it opened up almost a crack in the wall where you could now see, because of that clarity, you could see where you wanted to go more in your life and what you really wanted out of life?
Yeah, so, I even started taking online courses from like Tony Robbins and signing up for different personal development webinars and getting into different businesses and exploring what did I want to do outside of my day job, because I live this extraordinary life and I love my job. I don't want it to sound like I don't, but it's a very mundane job for the life that I live. And so I'm like, okay, what's there outside of it?
Sure. And I'm assuming all the work you do physically and emotionally and mentally also makes you much better at your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so.
Well, as you continue to sign up for these Tony Robbins and all these courses, I know a really good peak performance coach.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Dave Durand, and I've built many companies, up to 9-figure companies, and I've exited those effectively. And I want to lay it all on the table and teach you how to do it. But I'm not just going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to teach you how to increase your influence while you become the best version of yourself. All of these things are essential to do at the same time. Again, Dave Durand. Listen to Durand on Demand to learn how to build and scale your business while you become the best version of yourself. Durand on Demand, anywhere you find podcasts.
Oh, I do too. He seems to be pretty incredible, and he's got this amazing podcast too.
You should go on it one day.
I know. I thank God he's inviting me, I think.
The honor is mine, my friend. So, here's the thing. I think a lot of people will think, okay, that's 75 hard. That sounds really awesome. I'm not going to do it. I'm just talking for a lot of people out there. But you know what?
Oh, yeah.
That's not the thing, really. This is the tip of the mountain of the 75 hard. This is the kind of the Mac Daddy version of it. But everybody can do something. You could say, oh, okay, I'll commit to a half hour every day of working out. I'll read. They're reading 10 pages of personal development. That's not that difficult for anybody to do.
See, that's funny. That was my least favorite part.
Really?
I almost missed that the most.
Oh, man. I just got a really good book today.
You can't do audiobooks. You have to sit and read. And getting me to sit down is a little difficult. Yeah,
especially if you can't have a glass of wine while you're sitting down.
Correct.
I just got a really good book in the mail. The book was just released today. So Gay Hendricks is one of my favorite all-time thought leaders in the world. He's been on Oprah 8 times. He's written the most amazing book I've ever, or top 5 most amazing books I've ever read, called The Big Leap. And I've been waiting for his next book to come out, and it came out today, so I got the copy today. It's called The Big Leap Year. So it's taken this concept of taking your life to the next level, which The Big Leap is all about. And this is a daily reading and a daily exercise that you do for the next 365 days. It literally just came in the mail between the last podcast I did 2 hours ago and this one, so I haven't even had a chance to crack it. And Gay Hendricks was actually on my podcast a year and a half ago or so, and it was one of my favorite shows to be able to interview a guy that I've looked up to for, I don't know, the last 10, 20 years of my life. So there's all these little things you can do. Maybe not 75 hard, but maybe do 35 not so hard. Create your own. I don't know. But to gain that mental clarity, that physical clarity is so powerful for so many aspects of your life. I know when I'll go like 13 days and I won't have a drink. 13, 14 days, and I'll have a few beers, and I'm like, why did I do that? I felt so good in those 13 or 14 days. Or I'll have a gin and tonic. And then I told you, I'm not a guy who sits and has one beer. That's why I don't have a lot of beers. I never have beer at my house because I don't sit down. I don't mow the lawn and crack a beer. I don't crave beer. I don't crave alcohol like I crave water. But when I do, I feel relaxed and I'll have another one. And then I'll have another one. And that's where if I just don't have the first one, I'm perfectly fine. And in social settings, that's where where my friends are having beer. It's kind of hard when I used to go to deer camp or I go visit friends or go to dinner and somebody has, if I don't have the first one, I don't care. But if I have the first one, I'm having 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, I kind of feel you on that. Well, and we're so, I don't know, conditioned to, if you have something to celebrate, you go out for drinks. If you are sad, have a drink. If you have any sort of emotional reaction on the planet, have a drink. And we don't have a lot of options, especially in social settings, to do something outside of that, especially when everybody's a heavy drinker here, it seems like. Yeah. At least when I travel, I actually drink less when I travel.
Yeah. Well, I think
even though like it's more like every country I've gone to is like more libation. But
don't you think because your mind is stimulated by so many other things that you don't really feel like you need to have a drink?
Yeah. Probably.
Like, yeah, I don't
think
think
that's probably accurate.
I mean, I went to like when I travel, I don't find myself. I mean, most of my travel is for business, which unfortunately it is, and I don't mix my business with alcohol ever. But even I went to Hawaii 2 years ago. I think one night I had several drinks by myself at the bar because everybody else was in bed, and I met a guy there, and he and his wife talked, and then went to Park City, Utah 2 years ago for 4 or 5 nights, and I maybe had a drink at dinner, and that was it, stuff like that, because there's so much else to do. Your mind and your body's always looking and moving and seeing new experiences. So I think it's just a different feel. I have a question for you, and I'd like you to go. I know you're a pretty deep person. This is my favorite question to ask because it really helps me connect with you, and it helps the audience connect with you. So, during the course of your life, Christina, what is one of the most difficult things you've ever gone through? And then how did you overcome it?
Oh, man. So, like, how much time do you have? And which experience do you want? No, I'm kidding.
I know you have that conference room for 2 hours, so.
I do. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's hard to believe that I'm only 36 because there's so many times that I look back at life and I'm like, man, I can't believe I lived through that. Or like, that's a totally different version of me. Like, it seems like I've lived a dozen different lifetimes within this one life. I've gone through things that like, I don't wish on anybody else. I've gone through pretty much everything you can imagine in a relationship, between like being cheated on, being physically abused, like love bombed, abandoned. I've lost friends to car accidents and had suicides and things like that. But honestly, if I had to put it down as like the most difficult thing that I've ever had to overcome was my own brain. I really, really think that because it was always my perception, my way of thinking that was holding me back. And so I was diagnosed with anxiety actually when I was 16. I had all these panic attacks all the time and I couldn't control them. And the doctor said, oh, you have anxiety. Here's some medicine, blah, blah, blah. Well, fast forward to as an adult, I'm still not having the best time in my life mentally. Mm-hmm. I'm still very much trying to control everything in every situation because I needed that in order to feel safe and secure. So I had this essence about me as being like, oh God, here comes Christina. Like, she's going to take charge of everything and bulldoze everybody in the room because she just needs things done a very particular way. And that was accurate. So I knew that I don't want to say like functioning well. I was a very well functioning adult, but I wasn't loving life. I wasn't enjoying it. And I wasn't depressed by any stretch of the imagination, but I just was like, there's got to be something better. Like, this can't be normal. And I ended up putting myself into therapy, thank God. And after about a year, she looks at me and she's like, have you ever thought that maybe you don't have anxiety? And I was like, no, that thought has never honestly crossed my mind. And she's like, I think that you have ADHD and the anxiety is a symptom. And when I tell you, I got so freaking mad at my therapist. Like, I was like, I do not have ADHD. I am not some child that runs rampant all the time and has super high energy and does this, and this. And she's like, not to call you out, but when you got mad the last time, what did you do? And I just kind of paused, and she's like, you drove overnight to go hiking in Tennessee. She's like, if that's not impulsive, I don't know what is. And so I was like, okay, well, you may have a point. So it took me like another 6 months, and I was like, well, here's the thing. I'm only going to, like, I'm not going to have you just test me for ADHD. I want you to test me for everything on the spectrum. So they threw the book at me, tested me for anxiety, depression, autism, my intelligence level, ADHD, bipolar, literally everything. And it comes back, and there's 4 different areas that you can test in for ADHD, and I was 92% or higher in every single one.
Okay.
So when I finally got put on the correct medication, I literally cried. And I called her because I was like, is this how normal people feel? Like, I just literally bawled because it was the first time that, like, I had a thought go through my head, and just the thought went in, I thought it, and it went out. It didn't ping pong in 70 different directions. I didn't have to control everything. I felt relaxed for the first time. I wasn't socially awkward in front of people. That was a great thing. So
What year was that, or how long ago?
I started seeing her. I think I started seeing her when I was 30. I was 32, so 4 years ago.
Okay.
5 years ago.
And that has been a game changer for you.
Oh, abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting. I had, it'll air, last week's episode with Amanda Lowen, and she was the first female black belt, jiu-jitsu black belt in the state of Oregon, and she talked about how therapy changed her life as well. It was one of the things she would tell her former self if she went back in time, is to go to therapy. And we mentioned this on the show, is how many people, of course, and I think therapy is amazing. I've been to therapy so many times throughout at least I started when I think was 20 or 21 in college. Gary was my therapist in college, and he changed my life. And I've had maybe 8 therapists as I've moved, and I would say 2 or 3 were garbage. They didn't do anything for me. Didn't last long, but the other ones were all incredible impetuses to the man I've become. And I think so many people are afraid of therapy. And, now with this better help that you can do online or do over the phone, it's a little less intrusive. It's a little more convenient, maybe not quite as scary. I think everybody can benefit from therapy. Every single person, because we're all fucked up in some way, shape, or form. We are. I mean, come on.
Joking.
I mean, and it's the people that what I've noticed, and I've had the benefit from my career being able to coach people one-on-one and getting to know people intimately that I coach over years. It's quite often they're the ones who try to hide it the most, who have this pure, clean life on the outside, are the ones, when you really dig deep down, they are the ones who are the most hurting inside. And they could benefit the most, but they just have this shell up, So that was 4 years ago, you said, when you went to therapy?
I think I started I want to say I started when I was 30 or 31, and I got medicated at 32.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But I was so against it. Like, I was like, absolutely not. And then I'm like, okay, well, what can I do besides medication? Because medication for anxiety never worked for me. So I'm like, okay, what kind of holistic approach can we go here? And they're like, you're pretty much doing everything you can. Like, if you look at my calendar, it's color coded. If you look at, I am the most detailed person on the planet. And what did my boss call me? Disgustingly organized. And
are you an overthinker?
Oh yeah, not so much anymore.
Good. Well, not to call you out, but last week when I asked you for a bio, you overthought the bio just a little bit. So everybody, I said I need a little bio, and most people don't have a bio written up, so they have to write about themselves. And so Christina texted me or called me, I'm not sure, and said, I'm really struggling with this. And I sent her a copy of someone else's. It was like 2 sentences. And she goes, oh my God, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the coolest bios, the one I read it at the beginning of the show today. It was perfectly worded. It was so simple, yet so concise at the same time. So,
well, and you sold me with that because I love writing. Like that's one of my little secret side hobbies is that I love writing. And so I was like, oh, I get to kind of explore this. This is kind of nice.
Well, I think a person who knows him or herself most are the ones who can describe themselves in the least amount of words. I look at it and say,
I like that thought.
When I die, I'm probably going to be cremated, but on my urn, I want 3 words: strive, love, live. That's all I want. That's all you want to put: strive, love, live. So overcoming your own. So you lost a friend to suicide. You lost a friend to a car accident. You've had relationship problems in the past. You've cheated on you, abused, and things like that. But your biggest obstacle is just what you've overcome in your head and overcoming your own brain. And
I would say so, yeah. So
other than therapy and to be able to get on the proper medication, what are some things that you continue to do to overcome that? That I always call it the demon in my brain, so to speak. But what do you do? What are some things that you do? You've done 75 hard, all these, but share with us a little bit about Christina Bowman's life.
Yeah, I think that becoming self-aware and owning your own bullshit is where it has to start. Like I had to really call myself out on my own bad behavior and my own self-destructive patterns. And the older you get, the more self-aware you become. I think it's just a part of life. But some people go through life and you can either go through life and have everything happen to somebody else that happened to me, and they're going to see it from a totally different perspective from whatever mindset they're in at that time. You can have 2 people share the exact same experience, and one will see it come out of it completely different than the other. So like if you want to overcome anything, I feel like you have to call yourself out. You have to be like, okay, listen, like I know where you're going with this and that's not a good place. But for me, physical activity is number one. Like if my body is not busy and I am lethargic, my brain takes over. So it doesn't matter if it's a walk. I don't need to be doing crazy things, but I just need some sort of physical release. So for me, that would be my first suggestion. Like, okay, if you need to start anywhere, just put your body in motion. Calm your brain down. Put your body in motion, and it'll calm your brain down eventually. But just commit to yourself on something. I'm not a big advocate of really strict diets. I'm not a big advocate of very strict exercise plans. The appeal to me of 75 Hard was that I could do whatever I wanted for those exercises. But I love a challenge. And so if people are like me and they like that challenge, then like challenge yourself to do something. But also like you really have to commit to yourself too. And it's so strange. But I think the hardest part in overcoming any part of you is like you almost have to be vulnerable with yourself to be vulnerable with others. And that's where that like self-acceptance and self-awareness comes in. Because if you can't, like I said, own your own bullshit, you're not being real with yourself. And you can't even be vulnerable with yourself enough to realize your own bullshit. How are you supposed to be vulnerable and go through life with anybody else?
You know, you just gave me the podcast title, don't you?
No, I didn't. But
own your own bullshit.
Oh, deal. I love it.
No, you say, physical activity is key to I believe this 100%. I believe it's key to everybody. I think some people need it more for mental clarity, but I think everybody benefits from physical activity.
And like I'm saying, it doesn't need to be anything strenuous, because I think when people hear the word exercise, if you're not somebody who's into fitness or into physical activity already, you hear the word exercise and you kind of panic.
Right.
You're like, oh my God, what do you expect me to do? Like, I'm not sitting there and doing 2,000 burpees. I'm like, yeah, I haven't done one of those in like 5 years. But I'm just as simple as like going for a 30-minute walk or doing yoga, like something where you are like, get away from your freaking phones, get away from social media, get away from anything electronic, and just like be at peace in your own brain for a second.
You said something, commit to yourself on something. And I think people struggle with that one, because I know I did for years. Like, I would commit to something for my own, and I always have worked on physical and mental development. But I've always I've always under-delivered on what I could have on those areas. Probably better. I've probably been better at the physical stuff than the mental stuff. And I realized probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe during COVID, I don't know. I realized the reason I've always under-delivered on my commitments to myself is because I never believed I deserved it. And I think there are a lot of people out there that say, well, okay, I commit to this because I want to be better at something, or I want to improve here or improve there. But then after you do it, you're like, I don't fucking deserve to be that person. I don't deserve to reach that height. I don't deserve to achieve that goal. And you give up. And, I think that's a lot of your comfort zone inside. It's your comfort zone holding you back, saying, whoa, 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 you're getting in better shape. You're getting smarter. You're making more money, whatever it is. Back off, little buddy. That's not you. You stay in this little bubble over here. And when you finally break that first layer of your comfort zone, and that rubber band, I look at it as like a rubber band, and it snaps, and your rubber band is now bigger. But the first time you break that comfort zone, it becomes easier to break the next layer of comfort zone. And it's just, you build that momentum, you build that habit. And I think there's a lot of beauty to just, in setting a small goal, committing to it, breaking it. Then setting a little bigger goal, breaking that one. Start small. I mean, 75 hard is going to be hard for a lot of people. They don't have your commitment level.
But they have to understand that I didn't start there.
That's right. Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back, I was very fit in high school. I went to college. I quit working out. I ate like absolute garbage, and I drank all the time. I went from like 160 pounds in high school to 215 pounds. I was very, very heavy. And one day I went to go snowboarding, and I couldn't fit into my pants that I fit into the season before. Couldn't fit into any of my ex's Carhartts at that point either. Get to the top of the mountain, and I'm like, oh, so I'm up at the top of the mountain in like Carhartts that won't zip and like a big old hoodie. And I'm already feeling pretty fucking low about myself. And so I get to the top, and if you know anything about snowboarding, you only get to put one foot in, and then you have to like get off the lift, strap your other foot in, and go down. I couldn't get over my own stomach to strap my other foot in.
That's a wake-up call.
It's what?
That's a wake-up call.
Yeah, and so I just sat there, and like I had always told myself, like, you're not really that big, you're still healthy, blah, blah. And I got to the top of that mountain, and I sat there, and my ex was like, here, let me do it for you. I was like, no, I got this. Like 30 minutes later, I'm still huffing and puffing, trying to stick my own fucking foot in this thing. And I just sat, I was like, you go down, I'm done. And I sat at the top of that mountain, and I was like, we are done. Like, I had just had a conversation with me, myself, and God. And I was like, we are done. Today is it. Like, shit changes tomorrow. And I got down that mountain, took off my snowboard, never went out for the rest of the day. And the next day I started going to the gym again. I started like doing little things. I didn't change my life overnight, but I really was like, okay, you have to do something. So I don't want people that are listening to this to think like, oh yeah, she did 75 hard. Like, and she makes it sound super easy. Like, that's after 10 years of just saying, okay, like get me to the gym for 10 minutes a day.
Right.
Like, I started from a pretty low. But like I said, my life is like a series of highs and lows. Because right after 75 hard, here's another example. I went hiking out in Utah. I have a huge bucket list. And hiking at Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon National Park were on there. So less than 30 days, I finished 75 hard. I am on the high of my life, physically and mentally. And I still don't know what I did, but I hurt my knee hiking through the Narrows. And it was pretty bad. Like, couldn't go down a flight of stairs by the time I got home. Like, I went from working out twice a day to being pretty much at a standstill. And the toll that takes on you mentally when, you know, your mental health is dependent on physical activity. I went from a really high to a really low, and I gained a bunch of weight back. I got really sad. I was not feeling good about myself in any way, shape, or form. So, like, you just have to start somewhere, and you have to start over. And that's why I said, like, the low points last as long as you allow them to. So the quicker you come to realize that, and the quicker that you can say, okay, let me call myself out on my own bullshit right now. Like, you are going down a really bad trail. You could turn yourself around and go a different direction.
You know, it's so interesting when I on certain conversations that I have on this show, they hit me because I need to hear something. Because a lot of times I'm interviewing somebody, and I'm trying to figure out what content I can get to the audience to help someone, that part hit me. Because I can tell right now, there are parts of my life that are going exceedingly well. Then there are a couple parts that are just, I'm seeing that right now. I'm like, own my own bullshit, call myself out. Like I'm going down I'm not going down a dark hole, but I'm on the first couple rungs of a ladder that could go really bad if I don't make some changes. So this episode here is a good, nice wake up call for me, not just on the physical aspect, but just in a couple other areas of my life that I'm thinking, okay, all right, own your own bullshit and get off your ass and do something about this. So I got to thank you for that. Did you, when you went to
You're
Utah?
I'm glad. I love the fact that like I could give you a lesson because you're always the one doling them out.
Well, I dole lessons out because I get lessons from people. Trust me, I am more of a sponge than but there are a few episodes that I've had that I'm like, oh gosh, this is exactly why I was destined to have this conversation today. And this is one of them. When you went to Utah, did you fly into Salt Lake City?
I did not. No, I actually flew into Vegas.
Do you know that I'm surprised it wasn't on all over the internet. I fell down the Escalade at Salt, and they have the tallest Escalade. Escalade? Is that what I'm thinking of? No, what's the thing?
Escalator?
What is it? Escalator. Yeah.
Escalator.
That doesn't sound right. So I was going up the escalator. We were flying out of Park City, and we flew out at Salt Lake City. But we were leaving, and my girlfriend had two massively heavy suitcases. And one was on the step. She was like 3 rungs ahead of me with my little suitcase. I had one of her big ones in front of me on the step in front of me, and I had one underneath me. And I was on the escalator step between the two big suitcases. Well, the one I lost the grip of the one below me and it fell and I went to reach for it and I fell down the escalator as it's going up and I landed at the bottom and I'm getting beat up by this. I can't stand up because the escalator is moving the whole time and it's beat me up. Finally I yelled, somebody help. And so somebody ran over and hit the red button and I got up and people ran around me there. And I mean, it was funny, but I was beat up. Like I was cut, bleeding. My pants were cut.
Oh my God.
I mean, my face was cut up, my arms, my leg. I was bleeding pretty. I had to go and get bandages on it. And I'm like, and my girlfriend started screaming, honey, and she's trying to get to me, but the escalator's going up and she can't. And obviously, but you land at the bottom of an escalator as it's moving, it just keeps bumping. It just keeps, they keep rising up and they keep hitting you as you're trying to get up. There's no way to get up. You can't get up.
Isn't that a metaphor for life, though?
It is. I fell down an upward moving escalator and I couldn't get up. And I had to help me. I had to do the proverbial, help me. I've fallen and I can't get up type scream. Oh, and people were standing around looking at me. And I yelled the F word. Somebody effing help me. And so somebody finally hit that little red button that stopped everything. And then people gathered, are you okay? And I got up and I'm like, I was more embarrassed at first. But then when I started moving forward about 10 minutes later, I realized how physically beat up I was too. So I forgot about that until just now. But anyway. So a lot of it. So tell me about the mental stuff that you do. I mean, the physical activities you do definitely exasperate your mental development, but you don't like to read self-help books. I'm surprised because I was going to send you a copy of one, but I'm not now because you won't read it.
I'm a big audiobook person, and I will read one. I have a whole library at home, so I do read. It's just something that like I really have to be in the mood for. So with 75 Hard, when they were like, you have to read 10 pages a day, I'm like, I don't feel like reading 10 pages today. But no, I don't like to read per se, but I would love to see whatever book you're talking about.
I'd like you to read The Big Leap.
That one did interest me. I'm not gonna lie. Atomic Habits is at my top list of one of the favorite books I've ever read on self-help.
James Clear, man, he's got a brain on him. That's good stuff. I'm surprised he hasn't written
and the psychology of money too.
Who wrote that one?
Oh God, you're gonna test me. I honestly have no idea. That book was gifted to me, and that one's one of my favorites.
There's a good book out by Derek Kinney called the Good Money Revolution. I think that's the best book on money and why we should make money and people should be wealthy so they can do good things with it. He's been on my show twice, and that's my favorite book on money of all times. It's not really a book on investing. He does talk a little bit about it, but it's a book on just the quality of what money really is. And for anybody who's afraid of success or afraid of money or thinks money is the root of all evil, this book will sway you a different way. It's good. His premise is good people should have more money so they can do good things with it. And it's interesting philosophy.
Agree.
Okay, so I'm going to send you a copy of The Big Leap.
Deal. But yeah, you asked what I was doing for like mindset side and not just physical side. So like I said, I don't like to read, but I love to write. So I'm a big journaler.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big journaler. I'm a fan of like visualizing and meditation and vision boards. I have vision boards everywhere, and those things are creepy. Like when they start coming true, they start really coming true.
There's no doubt.
I don't know if you've ever done them or not, but last year, like I had one. So I have one that I read you at the beginning of every year, and it's kind of like an overall theme for the year. Like things like big goals that I want to achieve. And last year I had a lot of things about being debt free. And I had been working kind of a part-time gig, nothing elaborate or beautiful, but it was giving me a couple extra $100 a week. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I could pay down my debt this way. I owned this rental property that made me some money. But I was always having to fix things, but I absolutely love being a landlord. I'm trying to get back into that this year. But I owned that. And I just, at the beginning of the year, I was like, I want to be debt free. I put pictures of all my credit cards paid off. I just had like money loves me and I love money, all kinds of things on there about it. And about 6 months into the year, I got this scam text. It was definitely a scam saying, hey, Christina, this is so-and-so from Cooper Capital Investments. And we're interested, we see you have a multi-unit property and we're interested in selling it or buying it from you. And I was like, well, I know that's a scam, but I wonder what my house is worth. So I got a hold of my realtor and she's like, inventory for multi-units is really low. Would you believe that I sold that house for almost double what I bought it for when I was 30? So 6 years later, I sold that house for double what I bought it for. I had made money pretty much the entire time that I owned it. And I was debt free by July 1st or by July 25th.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the vision boards are I did a speech in, I think it was Portland. It was Oregon anyway. 6-7 years ago for a client. And it wasn't a client, but, he was a client years ago, but he was doing a client event for his clients. And there might have been 100 people, and he brought all these magazines and all this poster board and all this glue, and he did like a 3-hour class on how to develop a vision board for his clients, So, and I did a speech for like 40 minutes or something at the beginning on what a vision is and how to think about this as you progress in the rest of today's exercise. And I had never done a vision board in my life. And I've heard about it. I always thought they were hocus pocus. I did one too.
I did too.
I did my first one 2 years ago. And you know what I did it? I did it on my phone. I got on some app and I made one, like 8 different components of it. And for my personal life, my professional life, and my podcast. It was right after I started my podcast. So it was probably like 2 years ago. And, I have it as the screensaver on my phone. So every night when I go to bed, that's what I see. And I look at it. And I'm looking at, they all haven't come true yet, but every one of those has progressed in a really good way. They have. It's crazy. Like, and it's what you put out in the universe. Have you heard the story of this guy? I saw it I don't even know what I saw it on a documentary where he and his family bought this house in Colorado. They had moved from, I believe, the East Coast to Colorado. And, they bought this beautiful home. And he was in his office and he was going through some old boxes with his son. And he pulled out a vision board from like 7 years before. And he said, I started bawling. And my son was like, what's wrong, Dad? And he pulled up the vision board. And the house that he and his wife bought was the exact house that he had cut out from a magazine and put on his vision board. Not a duplicate or a light replica. It was the exact house, exact address. And he had forgotten all about it. It's just, he said, it was like 8 years ago. I forgot all about it, Well,
it's just about planting that seed. It's the same thing as like when I say like committing to yourself, like just plant a seed and commit to watering that freaking seed every damn day.
I think that'd be a really good topic for this show is to do one on vision boards. Because I think a lot of people are like, I think some people are like, what the hell is a vision board? Some people have done
I have people that look at me like I'm batshit crazy when I talk about them. But I'm like, listen, you'll say that until things start happening. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I manifested this.
And that's the crazy thing. That manifestation shit I thought was all crap. I always called it psychobabble bullshit. And then I started, when you start to study neuroscience, and then you start to study quantum physics, you realize that this is not a esoteric type of process. It's actually it's an actual change in the way your brain thinks, the way your brain actually physically changes when you do something like that.
Yeah, there's tangible evidence. Yeah.
I mean, I have everybody in my client base do a thing called the TPI exercise. I do it every day. And that's the first thing I have a client do when they hire me is I have them create the best version of themselves. It takes about 3 weeks to develop it. What they do is they put all the roles they play in life that are important to them. Then I say, okay, at this role, let's say husband, I want you to describe what the perfect version of you is as a husband. And I want you to write that down. And you say, I am. And it takes a while to word it right because you're trying to convince your right brain, and your right brain hears words so much differently than your left brain does. So you can't put certain words in there. And then when it's done, I say, okay, now read it out loud once a day, maybe twice a day, right before you get up or right before you go to bed. And you read it out loud and you use tonality. You can raise your hands. You act it out if you want. You bring emotion to it. I said within 10 to 21 days, you'll start seeing some subtle changes. Within 3 to 6 months, you'll see exponential changes because you're telling your right brain, this is who I am. And every decision you make and every action you take is all done on the right side of your brain. So if you think you're a piece of shit, you're going to get up and act like a piece of shit all day. But if you convince the right side of your brain that you're a really good person, you're energetic, you're healthy, you're an amazing father, whatever, you're going to act that out slowly over time. What your right brain thinks will dictate, it does dictate at all times what you think, feel, say, and do. And so it's the same process. It's manifestation, but it physically changes your brain. They do these things called fMRIs. It stands for functioning magnetic resonance imaging. They put a machine on your head basically, and they can look on a screen and they see your brain on a screen. And over the course of doing exercises like this or vision boards, they see the brain physically change. And it's so like where it was dark spots, now there are white spots or white, whatever. And it's crazy. So it is neuroscience combined with quantum physics. So it's not babble bullshit. It's actual scientific proof. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so my brain must work very similarly to yours because I have a hard time believing things that I can't touch, feel, taste. Like I need some sort of evidence for like causality. And I was always like, yeah, law of attraction. Yeah, manifestation, same psychobabble bullshit. Yeah. And then I started reading the same things about how like there are actual frequencies and wavelengths and how your brain and the dark spots and the light spots fire up and exactly everything you just said. So now when I talk to people and I hear them talk negatively about themselves, like I correct them immediately. It's like it's become one of my number one pet peeves. Yeah. And I have especially some friends at work, one in particular, he's always like, I'm this and I'm that. And I'm like, listen, you keep talking to yourself like that. Like, I'm going to slap you. And because I'm like, you don't understand how much the influence, like, it's not bullshit when people say like what you
thought in your subconscious brain is exactly how you will act all day. And it's so damn hard to change that subconscious brain. It rules everything. And the idea is just switching that around. And you kind of have to lie to your subconscious brain for a while. I always tell my clients, your left brain has to lie to your right brain so your right brain understands the real truth. So it's kind of a contradiction. But I mean, because I do believe, Christina, we are all born pretty damn awesome. I mean, I look at my grandson who's 2.5 years old. That kid doesn't think there's any limitations on his life. He thinks nothing. I mean, he gets mad at things. Yep. Doesn't control his emotions. Yep. But in his mind, he's perfect. And the world revolves around him. He has no prejudices, no biases. He just thinks that he can do and accomplish anything he wants. And I believe we were born that way. And then all of a sudden, over the course of time, people put bullshit around us. They covered us up with this excess bullshit. And we also did the same things to ourselves. And pretty soon in adulthood, we are unrecognizable. And I say, you were born with a true peak identity. I call it the TPI. And then all of a sudden, when you're an adult, now you have a fake ID. And you live that fake ID. And whatever the fake ID says, you live it. You got to go back to getting rid of all that excess garbage around you. You got to whittle that away to get back to your true self. And this is one, the vision boards are a great way to do that. The TPI exercise, the affirmations, if it's done properly, it's probably the most powerful way to do it. So I love it, man. Okay. So, as you're continuing on, what's your next vacation?
Oh, my next week. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks for Curacao.
Okay. So tell the audience how you travel, sometimes with somebody, sometimes alone.
Yeah. So like I said, I didn't have a passport until 2018. I had technically, I guess, been out of the country because I went on a cruise and I had gone to Canada, but that was it. I never had a lot of experience traveling, but I just kind of got this little bug. And how it started was my one girlfriend at the time was like, hey, so I got invited to go to Iceland, and I was wondering if you want to go with, because I don't really know the other girls that well. And they said it was fine if I had another person go. I was like, I looked at her, I was like, why the fuck would I want to go to Iceland? I live in Michigan. And I was like, I don't know. And she goes, well, it's like $500 for the trip. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. I think that's fine.
That's affordable.
So I got my passport, went to Iceland. And when I tell you, I fell in love with everything about this country. Like, I sat there with my head on a swivel the whole time. I loved the people. I loved the food and the drink and the culture and like the landscape. And it was just something so different that I have ever seen. It was like some new synapses were formed in my brain. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. I love this newness and this exploration. And so after that, a couple of friends decided that they wanted to do a group trip to the Dominican the next year. And so I got in this habit of visiting one new country every single year. And so now it's on my goal list. I have to visit one new country and one new place in the U.S. every single year. And I've done it for the last 6.
Dude, that is so amazing. I mean,
so sometimes I go with friends, and sometimes I've been predominantly single for most of my adult life at this point. And I kind of came to the realization that if I didn't go, if I kept waiting for somebody to go with me, I was never going to go.
Yeah.
So I started out small. I did like a hiking trip in Tennessee by myself. And if you know anything about me, I can make friends with a pickle. Like I meet friends everywhere that I go. And I went and I ran into these 2 guys in the parking lot after the Rangers said, hey, they're hiking the same trail you are. Why don't you see if you can walk with them? And I ended up jumping in their truck, and we hiked a mountain together that day. But I don't encourage people to jump in strangers' trucks. Yeah, please preface that.
Right.
But it was like little things. So I did this little trip to Tennessee. Driving down there by myself was a huge thing at that time. And then it became, okay, well, maybe I went to Utah by myself. I did that entire hiking trip alone, made some friends along the way. And then a month later, I did my first international trip. I went to Costa Rica alone. But if I waited for people to go with me, I wouldn't have gone to half of these places, and I wouldn't experience half the things that I experienced. I don't fear going out to dinner by myself, and I know that a lot of people are even uncomfortable with that. But I'm at the point where I really don't want to miss out on any of life's experiences just because I don't have somebody to share those with right now. I hope that eventually I do. But why would I wait in the meantime? Everybody else worries about me traveling alone a lot more than I do anymore.
I can imagine. I'm sure your folks do.
I just had one of my coworkers come up to me earlier today. She's like, so who are you going to Curacao with? And I was like, nobody. And she's like, are you sure that's okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's fine. Also, side note, I don't get international cell phone service. So if I'm not hooked up to Wi-Fi when I leave, I don't talk to anybody.
Is that a benefit?
And I don't.
For you?
I love it.
I can imagine.
I don't get to detach very often. It takes a lot for me to say, like I said, say no and just I love being by myself to an extent, but to actually get to that point, we're so connected on so many different levels to people these days that when I'm just sitting on a beach and there's no Wi-Fi around me, my phone's not going off, and I don't have to think or worry or feel anything. I just get to enjoy the sunshine on my skin. I'm like, okay, this is great. Life is good.
That's when you can journal well too. I think when I'm alone, I journal the best.
Oh, I wrote a whole freaking book in Costa Rica.
It's so interesting because I'm at the point now where I'm not an introvert fully, but I'm a lot more introverted than I'm extroverted, and that surprises so many people. But I guess I'm titled an ambivert, which is more introverted, but you can be extroverted when you need to be. I don't like big groups of people. I think we're the same
person.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about this last week, and I think there's a lot of, I get around a group of people and I can flourish for about 4 or 5 hours and then I'm done. Like I'm so burnt out.
Once my social meter is done, I am like, good night.
Yep. Me too. It's like, I'm off. I sneak out. I do what they call it, the Irish goodbye or something.
The Irish goodbye.
Irish goodbye. They always tell me I ghost. I get overstimulated very easily. But when I'm alone, which I'm alone a lot at my house, I find myself, I'm working now on going from being alone to I'm working on being okay, being alone but not being lonely. And I'm working on that because I find when I do go home, and I'm gone 2 weeks out of the month usually away from my home. I go home for a couple nights. I shoot right up to my daughter's house so I can see my son. My son lives in the same town in Marquette, Michigan. He goes to college. My daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandson live there. I go up there for 4 or 5 nights, and then I go home for a couple more days. I do that a couple times, then I travel again. I take off again for 2 weeks. So I'm alone during the day almost every day because of my job, but I don't have a big staff of people and I do everything alone, but I found myself for quite a while. The last winter, the winter of 22, 23, I felt lonely a lot. It was a pretty dark winter for me.
Yeah.
And I started working on, one of my friends who now lives in Portland again, she was living in Vegas at the time. She texted me one Sunday, because we had talked about those over the phone, and she said, on a Sunday morning, she said, what are you going to do to practice self-love this week? Because she knew I was going through a dark time. And it hit me. I said, okay, I put a list of things down, Christina, that I can do this week to practice self-love, which is amount of exercise, how much protein I put in my body, how much reading I do, how much meditation I do, how my workout, blah, blah, blah. I had like 12 things. And I said, I'm going to get these 12 things done this week. I'm going to do them all. And it was kind of like a mini version of 75 Hard. And I said, this worked. And I started doing that. And when I started practicing these more acts of self-love, taking care of myself, I found myself being much more comfortable being alone because it wasn't just a quiet house. And now that my dog died 2 months ago, the house is even quieter. There's nobody there when I'm home. But I find if I stick to a regimen of doing things that fill my cup, I'm every day I'm becoming more comfortable being alone without feeling lonely. I still feel lonely, but it's a lot less. The power is not there. It doesn't have the power over me that it had about a year and a half ago or so. So I think
I think that loneliness only gives it as much power as you let it.
100%.
Because I would say like on a daily basis that like throughout the day there are times that I feel lonely even when I'm surrounded by people. But like I definitely still have moments every day where I don't want to say sad, but I'm definitely feeling alone.
Yeah.
But they're very fleeting at this point. And I'm not unhappy. Well, but it's like an acceptance of the loneliness. I think it's just a part of life.
I think you're right. And then I think anybody who has the power to travel, especially, anywhere, nationally or internationally alone, that I think you become so much closer with yourself when you do that.
I think you find, like, I found me in traveling. Yeah. I think that exposing myself to all these different cultures and people and understanding that the world is not as scary as it's made out to be. I think that was the most eye-opening experience of my life, was being like, man, I really can go out here and no, I'm not going to get kidnapped around every corner.
Yeah, right.
Just because I think that there's so much fear-mongering in just living anymore.
I agree.
And I hate it. I'm like I get questioned so much with almost everything that I do, whether it's traveling or when I bought my rental house, people literally called me stupid and said, what do you know about being a landlord and fixing up a rental property? I go, nothing. And I was like, I don't know anything about it, but I asked people that do. And I watched a lot of YouTube and I figured it out. Like, there is just nothing that can't be fixed or solved.
Right.
And so when you have all these people that are fear-mongering everything in life, and you like limit yourself to your exposures, like we talked about coming from a small town, like the exposures is what opens your eyes to all kinds of different opportunity and people, and the different ways that people love and express themselves. And I'm so grateful that I got to see that at the age that I did. I wish I would have done that younger. But God, like, it's just,
I mean, what sells? What sells? Fear and sex. That sells.
Yeah.
And that's what the media exposes us to. The corporate media exposes us, and so many people buy into it. One of the things I've learned in doing this show for the past 2 years or so is that I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised, and I shouldn't be surprised, but I have been, by how many amazing people there are around the world that I've gotten to meet on this show. And even pre-interviews I do, some shows I haven't aired yet. But just, I mean, I've done maybe 85 interviews. I don't know, 90. I don't know what it is, but of where I've had somebody on the show. And there's only, like, I can honestly say there are 2 people I got off the phone saying, I don't like that person. I just don't like them. But all the other ones, I'm like, what? And like a lot of people, I would say half I had never met before. Other half that was a connection. Some were really close friends of mine. I even had my son on. So obviously some I already knew were great people, but I'm like, I love that person. And now that I have somebody on the show, I'm texting them back and forth. I communicate with them. When I travel, I'll visit them and see them, go to lunch, coffee, whatever. I'm like, we're surrounded by amazing people. And the small faction of people are assholes. So it's a very small number across the entire world. But those people get exposure,
agree.
So we think that's the world. The world is so evil. The world is dangerous. The world is so divisive, and this is the darkest time on our planet. No, it's not really. It's the safest time we've ever lived as human beings on this planet right now. And people are being exposed to the wrong things, and they're believing this bullshit. And like you are out there testing it and saying that's not true. There's a lot of amazing people. You got into a truck with 2 strange dudes and hiked the mountain. Wouldn't recommend it, audience, but
No,
not out.
I wouldn't either.
You might want to vet people a little bit better, but it's the point.
I mean, the park ranger said they looked friendly, so I went with it.
Yeah, I think Dahmer looked friendly.
Probably.
So. Ted Bundy looked friendly. No, but that's even my mindset is thinking that. But if you did that 100 times, you're probably not going to run into any problems. You might run into one problem, but it's a small percentage. I mean, but I guess sometimes we have to err on the side of caution in certain situations, but at the same time, we can't liberalize.
I'm not trying to say that there's like never been bad things that have happened or situations where I've been like a little bit frightened. There was one when I landed in Vegas. I went out to dinner and this guy was just exceptionally drunk and wanted to sit with me, and I did not want him to sit with me. So a little bit of security had to get involved, but like. There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing that's unmanageable for the most part. Like, yes, there are terrible things that happen, but that is not as common of occurrence in life as you're made to believe.
And that's the situation when you'd tell somebody that story, they would think, well, see, there's dangerous people. Yeah, there was a restaurant of 150 people. One person was potentially dangerous. What about the 149 who weren't?
And you want to know the most amazing thing about that situation? There was a couple sitting at the table next to me who realized that something was wrong. They had finished their dinner and just sat there for like a half an hour, 35 minutes to make sure that I was okay.
Yeah. That's the real world.
I did not know them. I had never I didn't even make eye contact with them. Like, they just recognized that something was like off in this situation. And they were not leaving until I was okay. And I had never met them before. So yes, this strange person approached me and it was a very uncomfortable situation. And yes, it worked itself out. But there was also 2 strangers sitting next to me that were like looking over me as well. So there was double the amount of good people to the one bad.
Right. And that's the world. Hey, we haven't talked yet. We haven't shared the audience with the time that you and Krista took me on vacation with you.
Yeah, we drove down to Nashville. What's that?
I didn't even know where I was figuratively where we went. I didn't know where you guys went.
We went to Nashville. Yes, that was one of my favorite trips to Nashville. Actually,
I think that's when I first was introduced to you, or right around that period.
I believe so too. That was probably around the 2016 period.
So everybody, she was friends with a client of mine at the time, Krista, and they went on a vacation. And I was coaching Krista, and I think Christina and I might have been connected on LinkedIn or on the social media at the time. I'm not sure. And they went on vacation to Nashville, and they took, was it a cardboard cutout, or was it a paper stick figure or something, or was it a piece of paper with a stick figure drawn on it?
I think she printed this thing, and it was like kind of a caricature of your head. And we just said, Bosley's going with us.
And so they throughout the weekend, I was with some friends and stuff, and they would send me a picture. Here's where you are now, and a picture of the two of them standing next to this caricature of my bald head. And I'm like, it was actually a fun day.
We went karaokeing. We went. Where else did we go? I remember we went to a really amazing restaurant called Monell's. That's one of my favorites in Nashville. Pretty sure we went to Centennial Park or Bicentennial Park. I can't remember which one is down there. But there's a replica of the Parthenon. Huh. So you went there.
Gosh, I had a great time. I didn't spend a penny.
I know. You're so lucky.
No jet lag, nothing. I was. Okay, so another question for you. If I was to shoot down to your town today, and we were going to jump in my time machine, and we're going to go back to, you pick a time frame of your life, I don't care what age, and you're going to sit down with yourself on a park bench, and you're going to give yourself, your younger version of yourself, some words of wisdom, recipe for success. What do you say?
I can think of so many, but I think that the best advice that I could personally, like if I was talking strictly to myself, I would say, like, you're not responsible. Like, you're not at fault for anyone else's poor behavior or their emotional response. Mm-hmm. I took so much personally with how people reacted to things that I said or did, or like I overthought, did I hurt their feelings? Did things like that. So for me, that would have been a life changer if I recognized that and could accept that a lot earlier.
I want to repeat that, everyone, for the listener out there, because I think a lot of us do carry this unnecessary burden of guilt for something that we have, something we've done that was unintentional perhaps, or wasn't meant to hurt anybody. It was designed to, sometimes, most of the time, we're doing something to better our own lives or trying to protect ourselves or someone else, and somebody else gets hurt by that, and that manipulation kicks in. And I think most of us are good people with good, kind hearts, and I think we oftentimes will carry that burden, and then we question the next time whether we should do the honorable thing again because we're afraid we're going to hurt somebody. Get rid of that damn burden. I mean, I think that's perfect advice. None of us are at fault for someone else's emotional response or their poor behavior. That's a perfect piece of advice.
It took me a long time to realize that people, like I said earlier, only see life through whatever lens of perception they're wearing at that time. So even me coming in with the best of intentions and saying something or doing something that I mean with so much good in my heart, I can't control how they perceive that.
Right.
And I can only do the best that I can, and that needs to be good enough. But I always put the burden of guilt on myself for how they reacted. And that wasn't fair for me.
No, because I think when you do that, the next time you try to do something good for yourself or whatever the situation is, you second guess it again because somebody might be hurt by that. And usually the people that get hurt by things that you're doing to improve yourself or help someone else or whatever, if it's an honorable act that you're committing and somebody's hurt by that, that's a person I really don't know. I question whether I want that person in my life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or I question, like, did they have a bad day now?
Right.
Like, well, maybe today wasn't the time, or maybe tomorrow would have been the time, but maybe they'll come around, and if they don't, then they don't. And that sucks for them because I'm pretty cool.
There would be a pretty good title for today's too. I'm pretty cool.
I'm pretty cool.
You are pretty cool.
I think that if it was me giving advice to myself, like that would probably be the one that hits home the most. But we kind of talked earlier about like holding ourselves back. Like I would tell people in general, like try as much as you can to like take risks at an earlier age, like to not fear the unknown or see failure as like final. Like I always saw failure as like the end. And so like take risks, travel, don't hold yourself back, and like worrying ruins everything before you can even experience it. So, and half the things you worry about never come to fruition. So just jump on the damn plane.
Hey, I like that one. So that was going to be my final question was, is there any question I didn't ask that you wish I would have, or is there any final message you want to leave to the audience? And I think you just did it.
Well, good.
And I think
I could spend hours with you going over like life lessons and growth experiences and things that have changed me. But like, I think you have to throw yourself out there and you have to get uncomfortable, and you can't do that with your guard up either. So go through life, experience it, and be vulnerable in your experiences.
Well, I like that. I'm trying to write this down right now. Jump on the damn plane. And because that can be literal or figurative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some people don't really want to
take it how you like it with whatever lens of perception you have on today.
Right. Yeah, we've gone already, my friend. 1 hour and 25 minutes almost.
It doesn't feel like it.
No, it doesn't. I'm looking at the clock and I'm looking at my timer on the recorder here. But anything else you want to say? We're going to do this again this year after another travel or two of yours and see what your next journey is. But anything you want to leave with?
I can't really think of anything. I think we covered everything. I just enjoyed my time with you so much. I'm glad that we reconnected because it's been a hot minute since you and I have actually talked.
It is.
And I love developing, like, I'm a huge person, like a deep person with like connections and emotions. And I think that like the richness of your life is very dependent on your relationships. And I'm glad that we got connected on this one again.
Oh, I no doubt about that. I mean, I think, what I've told 90% of my guests is, okay, now that we've done this show, I want to make sure we stay in contact. And you're definitely one of those people. I'm going to make sure I stay in contact with you.
And I'll commit to doing the same. Okay,
good. I mean, I think one of the things that saved my ass over dark times in the last, that year of 23 winter was meeting new people like this and building a much, much bigger, I have a small, very good group of very close friends. And then I had a lot of acquaintances. But now I don't really have a lot of acquaintances anymore. I have a very small, close group of very good friends. Then I got this second tier that's really close to that first tier, who are just amazing people that some I never see. They have become podcast guests, or some are clients, of course. But they have taken away from the acquaintances because I don't have time for all that. I have my really core group of friends, small group. Then I have this next layer of people like you and some of those have now made it into my core group. But I don't really want a lot of acquaintances. I like to be able to reach out to somebody through a phone call or text who thinks a lot like I do, who can challenge the hell out of me, who can inspire me, and like this conversation today has. So I'm going to leave it with this. Is I think the messages I got out of today, if I had to sum up, would be own your own bullshit and jump on the plane. I think those are two great ways to wrap up today. So, my friend, I want to please stay on the phone after we wrap up the recording here, the show, so I can talk a few minutes before you jump on back to work. Thank you. I'm so glad that I reached out to you a week or two ago and that we got to connect on the phone and connect obviously today for today's episode. But thank you so much for being such an amazing guest and really one of the most inspiring ones I've had on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. I think I'm the more grateful one here, though. So this has been a great opportunity for me, and I just love how easy the conversation is between you and I. And that's what I love about listening to your podcast too, is it feels like a conversation. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to tell everybody, some people are very nervous before most people are. They say, I'm really nervous. And I tell everybody at the end of this, when we're talking afterward, you're going to say that was so much fun and it was so easy. And the last week's episode, I made a commitment that you're going to say that. And at the end, she said, that was so much easier than I thought. I felt that easy the whole time. So that's the thing. We're not trying to press stuff out of people. We're not trying to move an agenda. I don't have any motive. I just want to talk to people who are cool. So, and you're one of those people. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm flattered.
Have fun on your trip to Carousel and come back with some good stories.
Oh, you better believe it.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you again for tuning into this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I'm really excited that you're on here. I'm going to please ask you to do a couple of things, though. If you enjoyed today's episode, please smash that like button. Give us a rating and a review. And I think this is a one episode. I would share this with 3 to 5 people. Just email it, text it, tell somebody, hey, jump on this podcast and listen to this episode. There were so many words of wisdom in the hour and a half we spent with Christina that people out there who you love and care for who could use, even just take one of the lessons, it could make a dramatic change in their lives. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I'm going to ask you to do 3 things Please get out there today and strive to give and be your best person. Please show love and respect to others and to yourself. And by all means, live intentionally and live consciously. Take care, everyone.